11 months ago, I was terminated while I was pregnant. My name is Julia. In next few days, I'll be going to court. But this video is only about me. It's about helping you. What to do if you were terminated unfairly at work? And what should you look out for when signing an employment contract in Singapore? If you ever worry about a job loss, unfair treatment, or just surviving the emotional storm of job loss, you're in the right place. So why am I sharing all this with you? Because it could be anyone who's working today could face, especially with so many layoffs going on. And I don't want anyone to go through it blindly, like the way I did at first. You need to set up a prevention mindset. The very first lesson came right after the incident is contract. Back then, I didn't think too much about these pages of fine print. I honestly just skimmed through. I was excited about a job, and I thought it's just a format to go through. But now I saw how those little clauses, probation, termination term, actually mattered a lot. Looking back, I wish I had read and understood my contract better. I'll be sharing with you what I have gone through personally. Those pitfalls I wish I have noticed earlier, and the red flags you should be watching out for. Number 1, contract type. Contract of service versus contract for service. They sound very similar, but actually a huge difference. A contract of service is what most employees have. It means you're officially an employee, covered under Employment Act, and are entitled to protections such as notice period, maternity leave, depending on your salary, overtime payment too. Contract for service, on the other hand, is for independent contractors. You are technically running your own little business. You are not covered under the Employment Act. You don't get a statutory protection, no paid leave, no automatic OT pay. Everything depends on what's written in your contract. Number 2, probation. The first thing that hit me was probation. In Singapore, employers can set any length of probation. During that time, termination is usually easier. Employers can technically set however they like it: 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, or even longer. The common practice in Singapore is to have a 3-month probation period. Back then, I didn't think twice about a 6-month probation clause in my contract, and now looking back, I realized how vulnerable it had made me. On top of the length of the probation, the employer can technically extend your probation however long they want, and as many times as they like. Theoretically, you could be on probation forever. To add on, when it comes to probation, it's always a good practice to check your notice period. Sometimes the contract spells it very clearly. 1 week notice period during probation, 1 month notice period after probation. Then that's very straightforward. You know how much time is applied in each stage. If your probation is usually long and the notice period remains unclear, it could leave you exposed. Next came the probation clause. In Singapore, besides the probation length and notice period, employers can write their own rules about termination conditions too. There is no minimum or maximum legally if you are making more than 4,500 Sing dollar per month. That's why it's such a big watch out point. Many people assume there is some universal rule, but unfortunately for higher earners, there isn't any. This means company can make the termination as immediate as they want, and it can start effective on the spot. They can also include vague languages, such as termination at company discretion. Reading this carefully can help you understand your rights better before it is too late. Next, overtime pay. I didn't know OT pay depends heavily on your salary and role. Here's what the Employment Act says. Let me read it out to you. Part 4 of the Employment Act provides additional protections such as hours of work, rest, and overtime pay. Currently, it covers workmen earning a monthly basic salary of $4,500 or less, and non-workmen earning a monthly basic salary of $2,600 or less. So what does it mean? It means if you earn less than $4,500 per month and are working more than 44 hours per week, then you will be guaranteed to have OT pay, which will be at 1.5 times of your basic hour rate. However, if you are earning more than $4,500 per month or are in a manager role, you're not protected, and you will be getting whatever is written in your contract. Sometimes the contract will be saying all salary inclusive, which can mean your extra hour is not covered and not paid. This is something I wish I had clarified before signing. Then there is the maternity leave. Here is where things get tricky. In Singapore, eligible employees can get up to 16 weeks maternity leave. This is a very short, simple sentence. However, I captured two key information. First, eligible employees. So what are the criteria to be eligible? Second, up to 16 weeks maternity leave. This is the ceiling. Then there must be a floor. What is the floor? I did a little bit of research. The first information that I captured is this website on MOM. Then let me navigate you through. Okay, if you come to this page, it asks you to check two boxes. First, whether my child is a Singapore citizen. Second, whether I have worked for my employer or have been self-employed for at least 3 continuous months before the birth of my child. I would say these two checkboxes are not comprehensive enough. Remember the very first thing we discussed at the beginning of the video? That is the contract of service versus contract for service. Before all these, you need to be on a contract of service to be eligible. So here, it doesn't seem to ask what type of contract you are on. So if you are on a contract of service, then we can continue to pass. If you are on a contract for service, this is the analog conversation. You are not entitled to anything. So do watch out when you are signing a contract. Okay, let's continue the discussion. First criteria, my child is a Singapore citizen. This is very interesting. My child is a Singapore citizen. How would I know when he's not even born yet? This boils down one question. How is Singapore's rules determine a child's citizenship? I would use a reference. That is, America does have this kind of a birthright model. So this either or option, which means to get a child's American citizenship, either me, myself as a parent, is American. So the citizenship is inherited by bloodline. That's the either option. The or option is if, say, neither of the parents of the child is American, but the child is born in America. But these would give the child American citizenship too. So this is quite a binary. There are only two ways to make the child, to give the child American citizenship. However, Singapore is a little bit different. I did a little bit of research. I would put it simple. In a nutshell, if one parent of the child is Singaporean, yes, the child can become a Singapore citizen. If neither of the parents is Singaporean, then no, your child will not automatically become Singapore citizen. I would say maybe it would be more informative to have the question rephrased in another way, something like, are you a Singapore citizen, right? To ask the parents' social status rather than the child. Otherwise, we ourselves as parents, we have to go through this sort of process and research and find out. So that's number one criteria. The second criteria is whether I have worked for my employer for 3 months or I have been self-employed for 3 months continuously before the birth of my child. So this is what we mentioned, 3 months of service. However, my third round of research seems to show this is not sufficient or comprehensive enough. I will pop another link here. Here's what it says. That is, eligibility under government paid maternity leave. Number 1, for live birth. Your child is a Singapore citizen at birth or becomes a Singapore citizen within 12 months from your child's date of birth. So that's one thing I would point out. Maybe this is more like the case of PR. I personally have not gone down that road, so that part I will not discuss further. Overall, it doesn't seem this website is straightforward in the sense of guiding you through the thought process and the decision making and job planning. Well, fortunately, I found a nut page on MO website. This might be more helpful. It's called the Maternity Leave Calculator. Let me walk you down through. So the first question they asked, again, same question as last page. Is your child a Singapore citizen? To me, no. So I tick no. Then it gives you the second question. It says, have you served your employer or have you been self-employed for at least 3 continuous months before the birth of your child? I would be ticking yes. And then it gives me the third question. Enter your child's date of birth or estimated delivery date, whichever is later. So let me key in some random date. Okay, I keyed in March 12th, 2024. Then it gives me the fourth question. The birth will be your first child, second child, or subsequent child. I can imagine maybe the reason of asking the order of the child is because this is one of the factors in this big decision tree. So the maternity leave might vary depending on which child you are giving birth to. So to me, it's my first. I will take first. Then it asked me the fifth question. When do you want to start taking leave? Let me key in some random date, say February 13, 2024. All right, then after all series of questions, I'm giving an answer sheet. So it says, first of all, I'm entitled to 12 weeks of maternity leave, and then followed by 2 options broken down in a table. It's something like you want to take the maternity leave in single shot or you want to split it. We're not gonna go through the details. This is your personal choice, right? Okay, but very last, not the least, I want you to pay close attention to this. How your maternity leave is paid? The first 8 weeks will be paid by your employer. The last 4 weeks will be unpaid unless otherwise specified in your employment contract. Wow, the very last sentence, the most important sentence. Although the conclusion they give at the top of your answer sheet says 12 weeks maternity leave, but as a matter of fact, actually you'll be only getting 8 weeks paid maternity leave. The 4 weeks are unpaid. So how do I understand this? Let's put it that way. That is, if you wish to continue to take the leave after 8 weeks, then the cost will be borne on your own. The employer will not pay you a single cent. They don't have the obligation to pay you anything at all. The only difference it sets this apart is if, say, you do not want to go back to work, because you're entitled to 12 weeks maternity leave, your employer cannot force you to go back, but it does not guarantee you will be paid. You see the difference here? Right after the 12 weeks of maternity leave entitlement, right in the middle, there's a section. It says, your employer will pay you your usual monthly salary for the first 8 weeks of leave if, number 1, number 2, then number 3, let's zoom in. You have given your employer at least 1 week's notice before going on maternity leave, and inform them as soon as possible of your delivery. Otherwise, you are only entitled to half of the payment during the maternity leave, unless you have a good enough reason for not giving the notice. So you see these series of factors that could affect the length of your maternity leave. First of all, contract type. Second, the social status, your social status. Second, whether you have worked for your employer for 3 months continuously before the birth of your child. Fourthly, whether you have informed your employer a week ahead. So that's a quick glimpse of the 5 things I wish I had paid more attention to when I first signed my contract. Contract type, probation length, notice period, termination term, and maternity leave. Those details might look small on paper, but they have a direct impact on your options and your rights when things go wrong. What surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments below. I'll be sharing more of my personal journey, from the wrongful dismissal, going to the mediation room, to self-representing in court. My hope is that by sharing my own experience, we have the knowledge and support that I wish I had back then. And you feel more prepared and confident if you ever have to face something similar.